Welcome to the Blitz Crosstalk. I'm Brianna Dix, joined by my co-host and former NFL scout, Brian Broaddus. Brian.
Where you been?
I know.
Been playing football the last couple weeks.
It's been a while.
It has.
But, man.
8-4.
Yeah, but this is as good as it gets this week. Division crown on the line. Division rival. Now, I have to ask you, who, in your opinion, in the NFC East is the Cowboys' most hated nemesis?
You're talking to a guy that is a lot.
Let's hear it.
You're talking to a guy that could be your dad. And when I was growing up, and my family had season tickets for the Cowboys from 1972 till 1992 till I started working at Green Bay. And those 20 years, it was always the Washington, at the time, the Redskins, but now the Washington football team. And it's funny how over the years, like guys and gals my age growing up in Dallas, the Cowboys had this huge rivalry with George Allen with the football team. He was, he really stirred it up, and the players stirred it up, and there wasn't social media, and it was really reporters talking to reporters. And it was funny how every morning you would read the paper and they would say something about you, and then a guy like Harvey Martin for us would fire something back. And so it was really kind of neat. It was not a rivalry that was fought through ESPN or any other thing. It was really fought through the newspapers and what little clips you could get. So, yeah, it's funny how it's developed from the football team, the Eagles. The Giants really weren't a huge rivalry. But, yeah, I think within the division – there are going to be a ton of Cowboy fans at that stadium on Sunday.
Oh, yes, a lot of blue.
And that's what's so impressive. And all those trips that we used to go on to watch, and you would be on the field and you could feel of the 80 some odd thousand fans. You could feel those Cowboy fans at that game. And so it's a huge, huge rivalry. And the football team's playing a lot better right now too. And so that makes things, 2-6. They were really dead in the water, but to win 4 straight games the way they have, and they're going to play a very ugly brand of football. They don't want to play fast. They want to limit the number of possessions you have, and so it's going to be a game much like the Cowboys had to endure with the Saints. That there's not Saints didn't have a lot of weapons. Make the game ugly. Try and run the ball a little bit. Play some defense and hope for the best. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Well, I'm glad that you hit on the Saints game because I wanted to touch a little bit on this run game. Once again, Cowboys weren't able to establish the run, and really early on first downs, repeatedly ran it up the middle to no avail. And so it begs the question, why not take more shots to the edge? Why not benefit what Tony Pollard does best, his explosiveness, his shiftiness? Even, Mike McCarthy said that's kind of a secondary thing, they're harder to get, and Kellen Moore kind of reiterated the same thing, that that's secondary auxiliary because presents challenges with the speed of NFL defenses. But I mean, really, if you take away Tony Pollard's 58-yard touchdown run, you take away the screen to CeeDee Lamb, they had 55 rushing yards on 22 carries in that game. Yeah. So when you look at it, what do you see the underlying issue that's contributing to the run game issues?
Joe Philbin.
There you go.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean this, and really, I'm saying this in all honesty because, Joe Philbin hasn't been involved the last couple of games, because of the COVID stuff. And that's understandable, that part of it.
Right.
But I will say Joe Philbin was involved. This team has not run the ball since the bye week. Right. And what was the things that they were doing? Even with Terrence Steele playing right tackle, they were running the football. Well, how are they running the football? It was Terrence Steele. These tight ends, they don't block. They're not good point.
No, they do.
They're not good point of attack blockers.
No.
They don't. Their tackle, with Terrence, and he has gotten better, but he's just not a powerful guy one-on-one. And you look at, and I'm a guy that was screaming for Connor McGovern to play left guard. I admit it. I do a radio show every day, as most of you know, and I wanted to see them play, Connor McGovern at left guard. But even Connor Williams, they ran the ball with Connor Williams in the game. And the reason I believe is because he's a better athlete than Connor McGovern. And they've been on a run where they've played really good defensive tackles and they've played really good inside linebackers. Like guys, like Mike linebackers that can run, that can fill. And, if you don't get a helmet on those guys, they're going to make tackles. They're going to make plays. And it's just like if you were trying to block Micah Parsons. If you don't block Micah Parsons, he will make every single tackle. And I think the Cowboys, and I said Joe Philbin, and I mean it this way, we're in week, 13? And they have not figured out this offensive line yet. They have not figured out the combinations. Do they go back to Connor Williams? Do they want the penalties? But do you want to run the ball probably a little bit better? There's a lot of things with this offensive line. And you and I, we could sit here and talk in training camp, and we've talked, what's the strength of the team? Offensive line. We could have done a million of these podcasts and talked about the offensive line. It's not the strength of the team right now.
It's a liability.
It's a liability because what they haven't figured out yet is what's going to happen at right tackle and what's going to happen at left guard. And I'm guilty. I raised my hands. I wanted a change at left guard.
Right.
I don't think it's necessarily the right thing that's going on right now. So, if they put Steele back in their right tackle, which they kind of say, we think that this, and they kind of give you that hem-hawing around stuff. But I think that Joe Philbin carries a really big stick in those meeting rooms. Jerry Jones is going on our station, talking to you guys in the media about, they both deserve an opportunity. Jerry's not evaluating that himself. That's somebody telling him. That's Joe Philbin. That's Mike McCarthy. That's, that's anyone else who has an opinion that Jerry's taking. I guarantee you he's asking people, why do you think they're not running the ball? And they're like, well, you're not very stable at offensive line right now. And that's kind of the long answer around it. And as you always know me, I'm going to give you a long answer. But in actuality, that's really what it is. I just think that Joe Philbin is like, he is not set on who needs to play. And the Cowboys, it's a constant tinkering of the offensive line, and it affects the way that they're playing. But you can say Ezekiel Elliott's not healthy. I have people in the organization telling me, yes, he's hurting, but is it the severe thing? No. Tony Pollard's having trouble running the football too.
Yeah.
And I think with Kellen Moore, it's a little bit of like, Kellen Moore doesn't have anything for him to hang his hat on. You love to talk about scheme. You love to study. You ask me more questions about scheme than any person I know. And good for you. Kellen Moore is a play caller. Kellen Moore likes to take this idea and this idea and this idea and this idea. That's what makes him creative and fun. It made him, when they were 6-1, that's what they were doing. But now it's like when things are not going well, he has nothing to come back to and say, this is how I used to run the football when we were 6-1. I need to go back to this way of running the football. He's not. He's a play caller. He's a stealer. He's a thief. And all the good ones are thieves.
Oh yeah, it's copycat league.
Andy Reid was a thief when I was with him in Green Bay. John Gruden was a thief when I was with him in Green Bay and Philly. These guys, the good play callers, steal plays from people. But Kellen, he steals a lot of plays, but he has nothing to hang his hat on. And it says, this is the core of what I believe. And then he could go to it, make it work, and now get it back going the way it needs to go. They got to run the football, though. I'm not being an old crusty guy here and saying, you got to run to set up the pass. I'm not saying that. I love throwing the football. I love the way the Cowboys throw the football. But, getting 54 yards a game, getting 71 yards a game on 20-some-odd carries or 30 carries, that's not a very good recipe for this team.
Right, and despite the wide receiver trio that the Cowboys have, this is a run-first team. And it's predicated off the success of the offensive line. How the team goes is how the offensive line goes. And I think it's ironic that, continuity is what we've been beat over the head with, but yet the offensive line's consistently shifting. And I think you're seeing that play into some of these miscommunication errors and some of, the issues that, you've had problems with center, and the fact that we've even talked about Tyler Biotish is not something that's positive.
No, you get two motion penalties from your center. You're like, well, what? I've never seen that before. I want to ask you something. Because you covered this team quite well. Do you feel like that when Kellen Moore as a play caller, when he gets in those environments like a Kansas City or a New Orleans, that he becomes more of a conservative, almost like back when he was learning from Jason Garrett? Remember all the criticisms that we had of Jason Garrett and Scott Linehan and guys like that, were that when it got to be tough and tight and it was like, oh, hostile environment place, that the game plan just just shrunk. And I wonder if there's a little bit of that going on with Kellen Moore. And I'm not saying you have to be open and wide and all that stuff, but I wonder with Kellen Moore if he's reverting back to Scott Linehan, Jason Garrett, those guys when it was, we can't hear, we got to use silent counts, we got to basically run the football, punting's not a bad thing. I wonder, and I'm asking you that question. That's a long question again. But do you kind of get a sense of that, or am I way off base about that?
No, it's funny you mentioned that, because that is exactly what was going through my head when I was watching the Saints game. And it was like, where was the play caller that we had the first 7-8 weeks of the season, where we were constantly talking about the way that he was adapting to defenses? I mean, you look at what he did against Tampa Bay.
Right.
I mean, a stout run defense, so Dak Prescott passed it 58 times.
Right.
You adjusted to what they were giving you, but against the Saints, I mean, you went into that game running the ball up the middle. And I mean, they were the third-ranked run defense in the league at the time.
Right.
And you're not getting anything through the middle. You're not getting anything through the A and B gap.
Right.
But instead of abandoning it and trying to maybe go more outside, going to short passing attack, whatever, he consistently continued to pound it for no gain throughout the game. And it's like they weren't getting anything, weren't sustaining drives.
Right.
So, no, that's exactly what I think we're seeing play out.
I'm curious, because I just wonder if for all the fun things we really like about Kellen, that there's this, his DNA though is to, Garrett had always pounded into his head, hey, protect the ball, don't allow big, don't give up turnovers, don't do, all these things that you kind of like you would think that, that you just, when you get in that environment, you become like a cocoon football, where you're like, hand it off, a short pass, where instead of like opening it up, and they might have some communication problems. You look at some of the things offensively that have happened to this team. The thing with CD Lamb yesterday, he admitted to you guys in the media that he's the one that busted the route, and maybe there's some thought to that, where all of a sudden Kellen Moore doesn't want to do a lot of things, because if you have to communicate and you don't get the communication, then you potentially end up with a bad play on fourth down. That's the last place that you need to have a bad play is on fourth down, so maybe it's his way of kind of pulling things back in. Washington it'll be ruckus this weekend. I mean, like I said, we talk about the Cowboy fans, but the football fans they're back into it. They believe they win this game, they're one game behind you, and they play you again in 2 weeks. Right. They see the division ahead. They see a team like the Cowboys that's kind of leaking oil a little bit right now. You need to go in there and shut those folks up.
Right. When you look at their run game, look at Scott Turner. He uses a lot of motions, but they heavily attack the perimeter and get Antonio Gibson out in space.
You're watching film again,
I sure am. Yeah. Play into his shiftiness. But what are some things that you see about when you look at Antonio Gibson?
Oh man, yeah, that's and I know you did a really cool story on Tony Pollard. Same, these Memphis backs. Henderson out in Los Angeles. These Memphis backs, they're tough, they're physical, they're a little bit different in the way they run the football because of their size. But with Gibson, what I've learned, Bree, and I know you watched the tape too, the teams that had success, and I went back and watched the Tampa game as one, and the teams that were able to stop him or slow him down were able to get beyond the line of scrimmage. That you were playing in the football team's backfield. You can't let Antonio Gibson, when they toss it to him, you can't let him come downhill. When they hand it to him, you can't let him come downhill, because he'll gain 5 yards every time. I mean, he will physically run over you. He's hard to tackle. He's a big, thick guy, and he's got a burst. And, that's the problem that the Cowboys, now with Tank back, with Randy back, Neville Gallimore, as we tape this, Neville Gallimore on Thursday, if he practices well today, will be available for Sunday. How much can he help? I think he can. The Cowboys just aren't a big front. They're not a big front. And when Micah Parsons has to play other positions other than linebacker, then it's a little bit of a struggle for them. So I expect the football team to try and lean on you this weekend. I really do. I think they're going to test you. I think they're going to test you with Gibson. I think they're going to make you. They want to make it a slow, sloggy game. That's what they want. That's how they won these games. They haven't turned over the ball. They've been really good on defense, of not giving you anything on third down, and they're going to try and usually the Cowboys can get 11, 12 possessions a game. They're going to try and give you 9 or 10. They're not going to give you those 2 extra possessions that might be the difference in a football game. So yeah, it's going to be a fist fight in that regard.
Right. Well, and that was something George Edwards was stressing yesterday with the linebackers going through the motioning, covering the flags.
You're right about all the orbit motions that come back. They call it the eye candy, and do you as linebackers, you try and not focus on that and that and that and this coming across. I think Logan Thomas not playing for them is going to be huge, and because what's happened with Heineke at quarterback, they make some incredible plays. Mm-hmm. It's third and whatever, and they make a play. They've got receivers. Terry McLaurin, is really, really a good player. Humphrey, the little slot player, is a good player. Logan Thomas is huge, and he makes a ton of plays. He makes plays in the red zone. It's a big loss for the football team. I mean, they're going to have to figure out a way to replace him, but they've got some weapons.
Oh, yeah.
It's just not Dallas Cowboy level weapons, but it's weapons that if you don't cover and you allow him to make plays in the pocket and you allow them to run to the football, they're not going to give you a bunch of possessions, and it's going to be a problem if you don't score when you have those possessions.
Right. Well, they've dominated time of possession, and Heineke, they found their groove with him, and even Dan Quinn was saying, he's a guy that can extend plays with his legs.
That's the thing.
Lawrence, was saying yesterday that his speed is deceptive. He fools a lot of people.
You're right. You watch the tape, you see it, and Heineke drops back, and they've got him sacked, and he ducks, and he gets down, and the guys go over the top of him. And the next thing you know, he's running for 20-something yards. I mean, it's very much like Derek Carr, these guys that you play that are sneaky. They throw the ball, they get back there, you mess up the rush. Oh, by the way, you're covering everybody. Now he just takes off running, and that's going to be a problem for the Cowboys. I mean, the way you have to play is the disciplined way. Mm-hmm. But when you get him in the pocket, you've got to close it on him. You can't let him bust loose or break a tackle or you go over the top of him. You see that so many times with him. Rushers just go right over the top of him, and he's trying to, and then he'll go down there and make a play.
Right. When you saw what happened with Taysom Hill last week, I mean, this isn't Lamar Jackson. This isn't Kyler Murray. In the third quarter, rushed for 6 first downs, had 75 yards.
Oh, they're going to test you
on the ground.
They're going to test you. They're going to see, and it's up to Tank. It's up to Randy. Both those guys play the run well. Where the Cowboys are really bad is when they don't play hard on the edge. I mean, hard as far as they're not firm on the edge. They don't set the edge, and then they get washed or they get moved, and then the ball comes right at them. And the football team likes to pull guards. So their offensive linemen, Brandon Sheriff and those guys, big body guys. You let them pull in space and all that, and you don't secure the edge, and you get washed down, and the ball comes to the outside, you're looking at big gains. So the Cowboys have got to be strong at the point of attack. And, Micah Parsons is probably going to play a little bit more linebacker this week. They need him. Leighton Vander Esch hasn't been very good. And so that's, they've got to figure it out, though. But, if he can have a good game, Keanu Neal, Curse, all those guys need to tackle well in this game. You just can't give the football team a lot of opportunities. They don't want to. They can't score with you, but what the football team can do is they can keep the ball away from you, and so you can't allow them to do that.
Right. Well, and I think their defense has improved, over the last few weeks, and I think one of the biggest issues for them is they haven't gotten the sack production this year.
Pass rush is right, yeah.
Right, that they had last year. So you're seeing that kind of tear up the secondary and make an impact on those guys with blown assignments and missed coverages.
You're right, because the football team, it's funny, early in the year they were really bad on third down. Mm-hmm. They were really bad on third down. Now they're really good on third down, but they're not as good on first and second down. So Dallas, if you could play what we call Canadian Football League football, because they only get you get three downs. Yeah. So if you win on first, win on second. The Cowboys have done a pretty good job through the year of winning on first and second down. They've been bad on third down here the last a few games, the Denver game, and then and also the Raider game. I mean, they had some bad numbers there, and the Saints game was some bad numbers there too. But what I'm saying is though, they've got to get back to getting that 6-7 yards on first down and making it a 2nd and 3 or 2nd and 2, and then working from there. Don't if you put yourself in a lot of third down situations, the football team will find a way to get you off the field.
Oh yeah. When looking at the Cowboys passing attack, Jerry Jones, I'm sure you've heard that earlier on the week on 105.3, he was talking, he was asked about Dak kind of struggling as of late and why he's off. And Jerry Jones made the comment about, when you're seeing some instances with these errant throws, it's because receivers are cutting a route, 2 yards short, they're not being crisp. And he said better routes is one of the answers to kind of igniting that passing attack. So when you look at the Cowboys receiving core and kind of the communication errors that are happening right now, how do you get back to that? Because, for a quarterback, it's a projection. They're, expecting a receiver to be at this certain hash mark, this speed, this trajectory. And once you've messed that up, how do you get back to that? And do you think Dak not running right now, not being willing to, and kind of the diminishing of the RPO game, how have you seen that play into that?
I think you mentioned the routes, but what's happened, the way that gets better is that Amari Cooper is healthier. CeeDee Lamb is healthier. Michael Gallup, healthier. Those are the things that are going to help you, because what happens is, since the Denver game, teams have played you more press man coverage. And what happens is, if you're Cedric Wilson and you're not used to running against press man coverage, if you're Noah Brown and you're not used to running against press man coverage. See, I love Noah Brown. I love Cedric Wilson. But those guys playing 40, 45 plays a game, no. Because what happens is...
Give him a Lee Turner out there.
Yeah, the deficiencies show up too.
Right.
The deficiencies show up when, there's a reason. Those are your 4th, 5th receivers. And if they have to play 50 snaps a game and all of a sudden it's like they're not winning on routes, I mean, the ball early in the game, the first 2 throws of the game, one went to CeeDee Lamb and the other went to Noah Brown. You're like going, okay, I see it. You wonder what's wrong, and they haven't done a good job of winning in press man coverage. And that's going to make the routes come shorter. Michael Irvin was on our show on the station yesterday on Wednesday talking about that. When you get bumped at the line, all of a sudden you're jostling and you're getting into the route. You're having to get into it quicker because there was that hesitation at the line. It's just throwing off your timing of the route. Free access routes, meaning nobody in your way.
Right.
You can run routes all day. It's supposed to be run. The slant's supposed to be run at 7. Boom. Run, hit, boom, ball there. But if you get somebody up on you and you have to fight, then all of a sudden that route turns into a 5-yard route because you have to get it. Quarterback doesn't have time. And I think the quarterback right now too, and you mentioned the non-willingness not to run, I think it's a factor. Now, whether he's doing that in his own mind or the team's telling him, don't run. And, I kind of believe that Dak was going to run. I believe that Dak...
That was the sense you got.
The sense I got was Dak was going to be Dak playing football. When Dak is... when things are breaking down and he runs for 8 yards and he bumps into somebody and that got him hurt. But there was a sense that maybe to me that Dak was going to run and get down, run, get down, run, get down. He could help his offensive line. I mean, they've had some struggles. He could help their receivers. They've had some drops. He could help he could help Tony or he could help Zeke. They've had trouble running the ball. If he somehow can run the ball for 8 yards, 12 yards, 10 yards, that makes a difference in the drive. That keeps that rush off it keeps the rush off. So, I think that Dak needs to go back to playing football like Dak played, but at what price? As a former personnel man, I learned this last year. I can't replace Dak. I can't. But I also know that my team needs his ability to run the football when he can, because that's going to help me in the long run.
Well, and that's what we were used to seeing him, checking out of plays.
Oh, especially against this team we're about to play here. Yeah. I mean, he's had some of his best runs against He had 40, 50-yard run against the football team one
Yeah.
year on the read option stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I think it would help. I don't know if necessarily Dak Prescott's interested in doing that, though.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, thank you so much
Thank
for joining
you.
me on this
Yeah.
Thursday morning.
Yeah, I almost put your face on a milk cart, and I lost you there for a while.
I know. It's been a minute with all the
Weird
three
schedule.
games and,
Weird schedule.
4 days. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, stay tuned next week for
Oh,
more
hey, wait a
of...
minute now. I got to talk about something.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
You got a new YouTube page, right?
I do, yes.
Where should people follow you on this YouTube page?
Go to Brianna Dix on YouTube, and 3 of our previous Crosstalk videos are up on my YouTube channel. And then this
Look
one
at
will
you.
be up. This one will be posted this week as well.
Follow this lady.
So,
She
yes.
knows what she's talking about.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.